Okay. Yes. How about others? Anyone else want to add pointers? Why feedback is important?
I think, as Ram mentioned, it's a direction that we are going, right? Means even in Agile, we ask people to have a faster feedback. We show the demo of the working software and get the feedback, whether we're deviating from what we are supposed to do. So that helps us to understand ourselves and move better in the direction.
Sure. Thanks for that. So let's get into today's session. So a typical working agreements: be on mute, avoid any background noise, respect others' views, opinions, pointers. Each of us has our own different perspectives, but let's respect each other and be interactive to the possible extent. The session is all about feedback. That's what I was checking with our speaker Nethravathi before the session. Let's keep it interactive to the possible extent, but when we say interactive, one discussion at a time, no cross talking or anything. And any questions or queries taking more time can discuss outside the session as well. This is not the ending. This 1 hour, 1.5 hours is not the ending. So we can get started and we can continue the discussion at a later point of time as well. So with that being said, let's start with our session. Welcome. Today our speaker is Nethravathi Ananda. She is based out of UK. She is working for a UK based MNC, and today's topic is giving and receiving effective feedback. With her lot of expertise and experience, she want to share the pointers, effective pointers from her perspective. Over to you, Netra.
Thanks, Satish. I thought I'll reserve thanking you in the end, but since it's Appreciation Day, let me start thanking you. I think anyway, a lot of them have been, and I second all that because yeah, you're doing a great job there by answering the questions, by arranging these sessions. That's quite helpful for us in this. It helps to be in line with what's going on, and also your posts on LinkedIn is insightful at times. And I also understood there's a new certification that you did with respect to AI and Agile, which had been a pondering topic in my head. How do we club it? So I'm really happy Scrum Alliance has got it, and someone we know has done it. So we can always come and ask you if we are interested. So it's a good one. Thank you there. And let me start sharing my screen. Just give me a second. Share the screen. Well, just give me a thumbs up if everyone's able to see the screen. Thank you. Thank you. Coming to screen one. Well, just a short intro, I would say. This topic has been quite dear to me because we would all be in the same boat when it comes to feedback. At some point of time, we would have received something not so nice, and sometimes it's appreciation. So we all know how it feels to be. And being managers, leaders, scrum masters, or even as software engineers, or whatever role that we are playing, we need to specifically consciously develop the skill of giving feedback and also receiving feedback. Because in other industries, right, like if you consider a dentist, he has a kit, the carpenter has his own toolkit as well. But for us in this industry, it is mainly about communication, and giving and receiving feedback is something, especially nowadays, that is just kind of become a culture. It's no longer, we know that it's no longer once in a year system. So it all the more it becomes important that we learn effective ways. So what I would do today with the agenda is that let's see typical theoretical stuff, a bit of theoretical stuff on what feedback, what's the benefits, challenges. Of course, we little get back into what's the science behind it, and then let's discuss. I don't want to get into any one of the particular model of giving feedback, but let's see what are the effective tips and tricks around it, which has helped me myself. It has helped some of my colleagues where I have been attested that it has helped them, and I myself have learned this, and it is turned out to be useful. So that's why I just want to share it with the community. Saying that if you see the quote there, anybody knows whose quote this is? Not speaking with people who truly can benefit from your words is to let those people go to waste. Those who are wise never let people go to waste, and yet neither do they squander their words. So this dates back to 200 BC, and it was by this Chinese philosopher, more popularly known as Confucius. We would have heard he's the guy who put education system in China. So I bring this point. I like this quote because it says that wise people never people go to waste, and when you don't give feedback, you are just letting somebody go waste in front of you. And followed by the line that says, neither do you squander their words, shows how important it is for us to speak with both candor and kindness. When I say candor, up to the point, and when I say kindness, being empathetic to them. So we need that combination when we are speaking. So we have to be careful with our words. And then that when you say don't go, people should not be wasted. We are talking about bringing the best in them and trying to bring the best by receiving feedback. Let's get into it. I think the second slide will take you back a bit in memory. For some, could be recent one, but for some could be really long time ago. Depends on how you got your feedback. Anybody who wants to share your experience on your feedback, I really welcome that you unmute yourself and share this story with us. You don't have to mention names. You don't have to mention the company or anything like that. So what we are looking at is you can give it a thought. Was it the feedback content, what was discussed, that disturbed you or made you happy? Or was it the process? Was it like a yearly one, or the way it was just done for namesake at times, or too detailed at times? And finally, some self-reflection as to, was it something to do with yourself? So anybody who wants to share this story, it would be really interesting to listen to, because I'm sure it's not silly, because everyone else of faced something similar. Anybody to share?
Yeah, this is Srinath. I would like to go first. Okay, so yeah, thank you. So, I mean, as you said, or as you quoted, saying that frequent feedbacks, yes. I mean, earlier there were no frequent feedbacks. Every 3 months, now the thing happening in the companies is, in IT companies especially, every 3 months they started giving the feedback. Only the commitment has to come from the employer or from the team member, along with the manager or the mentor. This point is missing in most of the companies, or in the most of the members in the IT company. And moreover, I think this feedback, whatever they get during 4 sessions or 4 times in a year, sometimes it is, as you rightly said in one of the point, sometimes it becomes a productive, and sometimes it becomes a negative to the on the part of the employer, or not manager, but manager is also an employer, as you know. But only thing I feel uncomfortable is, whatever the feedback it is given, it is becoming only letters in the application or in the app, but there is no drive from the employer or from the manager to get it to close with the required objective, or with the set objective. So sometimes feedback is not effective. Whatever may be the reason, probably you will help us with the reasons, so how we make feedback when we give to the team members, and how to drive it, and as well as how to make sure that the team members are committed to get into the closure of these feedback points, and as well as reach their career goals. Maybe it is promotion, or maybe it is the salary hike, or to the some other team. I mean, relocating to some other location or going to the some other team as part of a career change. Yeah,
Right.
that's it
I
from
think
my
you
side.
kind of summarized various people's experience there. Thanks, Srinath. I think, yeah, it's like that. So neither the employee is very comfortable receiving an feedback, or I mean, as a team member. And though managers are trained in certain aspects, it's a skill that we need to consciously practice, as I mentioned. So let's go through the slides. I hope there is a takeaway from this session, because you kind of mention the issue that we all face generically here, right? But does anybody have a story where it kind of was, you're free to share,
Yeah.
kind of like tormenting? I can share mine as well, but it's good if you're mentioning it.
I can go here. For me, feedback. I always got confused when I was given a feedback from my bosses. I always got confused. What do I do with it? I mean, there was nothing that I could do about it. It was always about, yeah, you should have been proactive. You should have been done this, that. That too, coming at the end of the year always put me in a situation where, what do I do now? I mean, there was no way where I could have taken some action by then. So that was something which one lesson that I learned from my bosses was that give a feedback at the right time and give a constructive feedback, which is more action oriented, which makes my team member or which makes the employee, take action to improve. So constructive feedback is something which, rather than, I mean, for me, it was always about the way it is given the feedback and also when it is given the feedback. So where it is more towards action oriented constructive feedback.
You hit the nail on the point. I think absolutely well put there, Ram. Let's get in. I'm sure everyone's going to relate to it, especially from comments of Sharath and Ram. I see that this session agenda is in line with our audience. So let's get on. So some theoretical stuff, but we need to get through that. So I will let you know what I'm talking there. If you see the definition, it's just about providing information about somebody's performance or somebody's behavior. But the aim has to be clear. Aim is just to point out what's going well and what is the area where they can improve. Okay. And it's easy to say feedback should not be about blame. It should not be about approval or disapproval. We are not going to fight over who is right, who is wrong. Though we know all this theoretically by definition, something that we can get value is when we learn and practice how to do it ourselves. And also, if when we are on the receiving end, we could see how to receive it well, no matter how the feedback giver is giving us the feedback. So we'll talk about us being on either side of giver and receiver. So if you see that window, anybody is familiar with that window there? It's quite popular window. It's developed by some set of psychologists, and it's dated back in 1950s. So this window is called as Johari window. Okay, and this is for the personal development. If you see, there is a blind spot there on the top right corner. Okay, that is the space where we all disclose ourselves, where the world knows what it is about us, but we ourselves are blinded. So we don't see that of us, but rest everybody can see it. So that space is where blind spot. And the hint for development is that we all need to understand where our blind spots are. Once we get that area, we are then reducing the number of blind spots, and feedback is a very, very useful tool where somebody else, like somebody said, it gives us a perception of what the other person thinks, right? So we are going to get details about what's not going right, which I am not able to see at this moment. So reduction of blind spot is it should be the goal. When I am giving feedback for somebody, I'm trying to spot their blind spot. And then while I am receiving it, I'll be positive and open and say that, okay, this person is trying to expose my blind spot. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. We are talking about development and the benefit that you see. about feedback is very clearly, just now it's about the development. And who doesn't need development? As a human, for us to learn and grow, it's hardwired. It's hardwired into our, happiness and satisfaction part. And if you're, I'm sure everybody's, most of us would be familiar with this theory of motivation by David McCland, right? So usually a human being longs for three things for its motivation, for his everyday motivation. There is a longing of three things, especially in the professional space. That is, the first thing is need of appreciation of accomplishment. So what happens with feedback? Feedback, when done rightly, it is trying to tell you where you did well, what's the appreciation aspect of it, and that's going to fulfill that need of a human being. Secondly, it talks about need of affiliation. What's affiliation? Where you seem to matter. So when you have this feedback discussions, since you're discussing facts, since you're discussing what went well and what didn't go well, you feel connected. There's a bonding that develops, and then it makes you feel like you matter. And that's important for us. We all need to feel that we matter in the role that we are playing, in the things that we are bringing from our end to the organizations, right? And then there's the final need that the human being craves for, and that need is need of power. So how is feedback satisfying that? Is that, so when feedback is given, again, in all these aspects, when I'm talking benefits, I'm talking about a feedback well given and well received. So what happens when it's done well is that in a feedback discussion, dialogue, you understand what you're in control of, what are the aspects that you're not in control of. And then you understand how you can improvise in the places where you have control. And then you can also feel good about what are the things under your control. It's a sense of autonomy. You know what things are in your control. So that's the sense of power. So feedback as such is beneficial if done well in fulfilling the basic needs of human happiness and satisfaction, to be frank. And it definitely, by helping us spot our blind spot, it is making us more self-aware. So improving our self-awareness is not only going to benefit in just the professional life, but it's going to help us become better human being overall. So growth being the foundation of human need, feedback directly has the benefit of giving us that learning and growing space. So the benefit is clear. If somebody has to think, what will happen if we don't give benefit? What will happen if we don't, do the feedback part? What do you think is going to happen? So for example, a person, you want to give a feedback, but then you're too scared to give a feedback because you think you might hurt that person. So what happens if you just keep it, and if you don't allow, if you don't express that anybody? What do you think is going to happen if you just don't give feedback to somebody whom you want to give it to?
So I could relate to the statement which initially you said, right? If you are not giving the feedback at the right time to the particular person, their abilities may go waste. I mean, it's
Exactly,
supposed to
that's
be.
right.
But
Yeah.
only thing is, the person who has to give the feedback, they have to do a little practice, I believe.
Yeah.
Depends on the
Yes.
person who is receiving the feedback. I mean,
Yes.
every person is different, so it is to be the who is giving the feedback, that manager or whoever it is, they have to be well prepared enough.
Yeah. So absolutely right, Vimal. So that's one aspect of it. You're just letting the person go waste, like how Confucius said. It's important to learn to make difficult conversations with people. It's not easy. It's a difficult conversation, but we need to learn that skill, and that's what is about giving effective feedback. The other thing, what happens is, say you have a perception about that person, and since you don't talk or express the feedback points that you have, you remain that perception or negativity, and then it builds the conflict depth. So neither the other person is seeking feedback, neither you're giving feedback. So what happens is, anything done would always, that's how we are, right? We are wired like that. Anything later on done is always tracked back to that thing which was not discussed. and that builds conflict depth over a long time, and then it's not beneficial for anybody. Okay, so I think benefits are quite clear. It's natural for us to feel good, and that's where we need feedback. To grow, that is where we need feedback. But everything has the flaw side of it, and that's the most exposed part of feedback nowadays, because it is not well done in all areas, in all organizations, I would say. So there are challenges. So let's start with stress. I'm sure the first aspect with feedback would be stress. So there are basically two kinds of stress. The one is called in-person stress, and the second stress is called interpersonal stress. Okay, and with feedback, what happens is there is always interpersonal stress because there are two people involved. I can give an example. For example, say you're on your way to work and the wheel gets stuck. Okay, so what would you blame? You would be angry with traffic. You would say this wheel is, you would be angry with the wheel actually, right? Or maybe on yourself. But say if you had asked your partner or somebody else to get the wheel placed before you start, but they didn't do it for you. So what happens that time is you're not angry on the wheel, you're not angry on the traffic, but you're angry on the other person, right? That's interpersonal stress. And when I read this blog that said that the researchers say this interpersonal stress is able to raise your cortisol to a level which builds such a high level of stress that it is equivalent to physical pain at times. So this is what we are dealing with when we are talking about feedback not done well, right? And it is like act socially rejecting somebody, or if I am on the receiving end, and if somebody says this is not good, you're not doing as expected, this and that, when I have to listen to it, I feel that I'm socially rejected. And even this is kind of building stress. Also, they say this is also equivalent to a physical pain. So there is the involvement of brain, especially the part called as amygdala in our brain, that is responsible for our flight or fight mode. So what happens is when the feedback giver is too soft in his interaction, we are we are not clear with what's the feedback. And then when the giver is on the other end very direct to the extent of rudeness being shown, then in that case, it just tips us off to becoming defensive, and then we get into the fight mode. So it's either flight or fight mode that we get into, and that's again not useful because it is not the reality, because it's just the perceived stress or perceived fear in us. So those are some aspects of feedback which we need to see how to tackle it in the session today. Okay.
I have
Little
a point
more
to
there. Yeah.
So as long as we have the data as an evidence to support whether it is a feedback with a positive side or on the other flip side, we have to maintain it with the data in a constructive way where the message can be taken by the respective team member in a positive way. If there is no data or an evidence, or if we are trying to pull up all and planning to give it at a later point will not help. It has to be there, given as and when it is needed over there. Thank you.
Absolutely. That is 100 out of 100. We'll talk about the data points and the objectivity that needs to be involved in the effectiveness or the aspects that bring effectiveness into our feedback. That's well said point. Thanks for adding that. Yeah. So when we say, this should be quite familiar. Again, just so that we are familiar with types of feedback. They're formal, informal, and peer-to-peer, self-feedback. There's also popular 360-degree feedbacks. But what I wanted to point out here is there is a strike over negative feedback. Okay. Instead, it is replaced with two new words that's called positive feed-forward or a negative feed-forward. So we need to consciously try and avoid the negative feedback word itself, because there is an alternate way to say the same thing. When you say positive feed-forward, you're trying to say that, for example, let's go with an example. So for example, if somebody had not sent out an email, but they were supposed to send it out, you tell that feedback in two different ways, right? You could say you're so irresponsible that you don't do things at time. That's one way of saying it. That would be criticism. That's negative feedback, which we are trying to avoid. But you could add, you did not send the mail. It is good practice to start sending the mail. So that is something that they were not doing and they should start doing. That is feeding forward positively, not doing to doing. Negative feedback is like something that they are doing. Maybe someone's, talking too much, okay, or that you want him to reduce. So something that they are doing and you want them to stop, that would be a negative feed forward comment. So we don't have to really talk about a negative feedback because there's nothing like negative there, because we are concerned if our intentions are about well-being of the other person, if it is about to bring the to improve them, I think you really don't have to worry about like we heard, we have to worry about when we have the data points, not with the intention of confronting them, not to like say that come on, I have everything, let's talk about it. It's not in that way. What I'm saying is absolute data points that you can tell them in a way to either continue or to stop. So that brings us to overall, when you see all different kinds of feedbacks, it's just two categories. One is developmental feedback, and is motivational feedback. Motivational feedback is where things are going good and you want people to continue. That's motivational feedback. Development feedback is all the category of negative feedback, positive feed forward, negative feed forward, all this stuff. Everything that we know generally as negative feedback should fall in this block of developmental feedback. Okay, so let's just move on. We are not going to touch these, but there's only one point that I want to mention here, that the sandwich model that is quite popped, all the managers get trained on this. It's really not working out, and there are a lot of videos of debunking them because it's not effective. Because it's not well done. That's another part of it. But the whole part of having a positive comment in the sandwich method. How do you give a feedback? How are we taught to give a feedback? A decade ago was that you tell a positive news, then you give the negative news, and then you fill it up with positive news. What does is that for a person who has to give a negative aspect there or a point of improvement there is a guilt, right? So what you do is that you try to tell some nice things in the beginning, and then you want to clear off all the emotional mess that you created by telling something other positive things there. So when you do it like that, it's not well served. You also lose your professional ability sometime. Like you lose on the data points because you get into this technique of, okay, I need to tell one positive news, I need to tell one more negative. It becomes more of the emotional to practical to emotional switch. That is not normal for beings. For us, emotion takes certain time to make a turn, and the practicality works in a different way. So how the feedback has to be, let's get into just one thing. There are various models. I've just put few here. The SBI model is situation, behavior, impact. The GROW model, quite popular. Coin, if you see, is also something similar, where we are thinking about orienting and then impact cost. Only if you're interested in jargons and words, this would be of useful slide. Otherwise, let's get into the commonality between all of these models that exist in the corporate world, that they have spread across, in various media and all the websites that are available. So there are just four aspects that we need to now kind of really practice. I would say it's not a little practice. It takes time to practice this. Some aspects are quite simple. So how do we give effective feedback? I'm going to spend some on this slide. So the first one is on micro S. Any questions, please feel free to unmute and just stop me there, or add a point if you have experienced something similar. But the first one is micro S. Any thoughts? What's micro S? Anybody familiar with that already? What do you think looks like a micro S? So these are just the short and important questions that you throw at people. But it has its advantage. Like, hey, can we have a conversation about the last meeting that went on? Or do you think we can catch up this evening to have a talk about a feedback point that we had discussed this morning, or anything like that. Just a short but an important question. Why are you asking that? And what's the advantage of it is, it will do two tricks for us. One is, since the other person can answer a yes or no, what happens naturally is the person feels the power. Okay, he feels the autonomy, he feels he is in control, and that way you already are getting the commitment from that person to be ready to receive the feedback. Secondly, it kind of acts as a pacing tool. So you don't want to give feedback when they're not ready. So it kind of gives you the pace with which you can handle that person. It tells them that the feedback is coming. It sets their mentally they are settled. They know that okay, feedback is coming. And then when you give them the authority to say yes or no, they feel empowered. So this is a proven technique that can work miracles. And it's not just in the beginning that you need to ask, hey, can we have a feedback? This micro S question is applicable in a lot of places. Like when you have to discuss the action steps with them, you can use this micro S. You can say, I think this can be the solution. What do you think? The question, what do you think, is giving them space to respond, right? It is giving them space to think. So these micro S questions are something where you can think of them as a trigger that is giving them autonomy. At the same time, you are in control because you are trying to put your point across. So these micro S questions are short and important questions. Wherever possible, try to employ them when you're giving a feedback, especially in the beginning. See, as a manager, it's my duty to give feedback to somebody. So any of you may question, if it's your duty, then why do you have to ask for permission? In that case, if that's the part blocking you, then you could say, hey, is this time convenient for you? Because I want to give a feedback. It's still that short question makes an impact on the person because it gives the sense of autonomy. It can get undermined in that rather than saying, let's meet at 3:30 for the feedback session that we have scheduled, you could have try out a micro S, and I'm sure it will work. It's helped me tremendously, and that's why I wanted to share that trick with you. It's on certain tech talks if you want to, and it's an amazing tool, I am telling you. And it's easy to implement, so we can all learn that skill. It's not a big one at all. The second step to it is, now that I've asked somebody, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about the meeting this morning? The next step is on the objectivity. This is exactly as somebody quoted. It's about the data points or the evidences. So one generic question, what do you think is objectivity, subjectivity? Just in common English, what's objectivity, what's subjectivity is? Anybody?
Being very specific and subjectivity is little generic.
That's one of it, yes.
I'm just thinking like typically what we have done, like the data points, like before we are starting the meeting, like we have to note it down. So what we have to discuss, like maybe in the feedback session. So what we have thoroughly, we have to recheck and we have noted the points to discuss in the meeting with the manager or supervisor. So I'm just thinking typically, I'm not sure exactly, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll tell you one example. So if there are oranges on the table, okay, objectivity is telling these are oranges. Subjectivity is, oh, I like them, or they'll be bitter, or these oranges look fresh. These are subjectivity. But basically, those are that prone to bias or prejudice. I'll tell you one more example because this example caught me thinking. The example is, say a couple of us are walking. Let's say myself and Satish are walking in the rain. Walking in the park, and suddenly there's rain. Okay, and I get all upset. I'm like, this rain has ruined my day, and I am all sad about it. While say Satish thinks that it's wonderful that it's raining. Okay, so the subjectivity part is, the objectivity part is the rain. The rain is the reality. Okay, but the subjective part here is that somebody feeling happy about it and somebody feeling sad about it. And why is that so? Maybe for me, I had a bad experience. Maybe I lost in a sports because rained or something. So that bias stays in my brain. And then whenever it rains, it automatically subconsciously triggers, and then I feel bad about it. Okay, so but while on Satish's case, maybe the rain helped him get a good crop. He had these success stories that he has listened to, felt happy for somebody. So as soon as it rains, that positive thought comes in, and then he feels biased. But either of us are not going to be useful if we don't talk that it's about the reality that exists, about the fact that it's the rain. Okay, so with this prejudice, if to somebody, say somebody has interrupted in a meeting. Okay, if I go prejudiced because I felt frustrated, if I go with that bias, I'm not going to encounter him for his interruption. Okay, but I'm going to just throw my frustration that interruption is not so welcomed. Okay, that's not going to do. Like I think Ram, you mentioned in the beginning, I was confused what to do, what's happening. That's what happens to the other. And if you just go say things like you're not reliable. Reliability is a different meaning for different people. These are called as blur words. Okay, so for example, you say somebody, oh, you're proactive. Even the positive reviews, if you say somebody is proactive, it means in some different thing for different people. Okay, there are English definitions, yes, but it is not perceived in the same way by everybody. So objectiveness is, instead of saying that you are proactive, or the very generic one in a negative sense is you're defensive. That's what you get to hear most of the time. Somebody tells something and we give back an argument and they're like, oh, you're quite defensive. Instead of saying defensive, which is a blur word or a blanket word that's just covering out all the actions there, you could say to that person that if it is meeting interruption, and if the person says that no, I am not defensive, you have to learn to say that you have interrupted the meetings 3 times this morning. So what are you trying to do in your statement, in your English delivery? You are trying to get rid of the adjectives. So objectivity is about not being biased, not being prejudiced, but making your speech very clear, using data points, and not using adjectives, but to have nouns and verbs. So what happens is, instead of saying that you barged in my meeting, if you say that, hi David, you interrupted in my meeting, not even the word interrupted, you interfered in my meeting for 3 times to ask particular question or to dig into that topic, and then you tell how it impacted you. When you're talking about the impact, that is what happened because they were talking, that can be subjective because that's your own experience. So your own experience, you can put it subjectively. You say that, hi David, you questioned 3 times while I was presenting. This put me off the wheel. That's your expression. You can use adjectives. You can say anything about yourself. You can say, I got confused. I was thrown out of my flow. Press whatever you want because it's your reality. But for the other person, they have been telling a different story to themselves all the while, right? For the other person, maybe for David, it looked like he was curious about it. He wanted to know things about what was happening. But if you immediately encounter his story with your version, saying that you barged my meeting, you destroyed my meeting, that's not going to help him, neither you. So if you're interested in the well-being of that person, if you're thinking about what action you should take, please, I think we should learn to have objective way of communication, especially while delivering the feedback, by saying that, by changing those adjectives that we use, you're reliable, you're defensive, you're not proactive, to break it down to verbs and to nouns. Okay, so we can think of an example. Instead of saying to somebody, why did you hurt your team member? Okay, this is not going to help. Such feedbacks is not going to help, because yelling, you were harsh with your team member, that's not going to help either. But if you put it in this way, where you're going to say, what are we thinking? We are thinking data points, right? So how would you say? You would say that, hi David, I noticed that you were talking to your colleague with an raised voice. Generally, I would think it's a bad day for you, but this morning it seemed that it was not appropriate at the given situation. So you're clearly telling him what happened. What is the advantage when you clearly tell people what happened? Is that they unknowingly give out the gesture that it's a truth. Otherwise, there could be discussion that, no, you have misunderstood. I was not yelling at him. Maybe you didn't hear well. Such unnecessary, unproductive discussions. But if you hit it with the right action that happened in front of you, what you heard, what you saw, if you can articulate exactly in that, what happens is that they know it's a truth, you know it's a truth, and then it opens for a conversation on how we can improve further. Okay, so that's the power of using objective language while giving feedback. So this is useful. You don't have to say that, okay, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this. I'm not saying that we should go with a bunch of evidences. That's good, because we all know that behavior is hard to change. Okay, if it's about say something minor things, not relevant to behavior directly, it's fine. But when it gets tricky is about behavior. Behavior is something that takes time to change. So you might just want to target one behavior that is 80-20 rule, right? The one behavior that's going to give you the change in that is going to give you benefit for yourself, for your team, and for the business. So that's the part of objectivity. And objective illustration of what you saw, what you heard, should be followed by impact. For example, how do you say, hi Sonia, I was expecting your mail by 11 a.m. this morning, but since you didn't send it, I could not further use data to process my information with your inputs, and hence it was delayed to the customer, impacting the customer satisfaction. If you put it like this, what are you talking? You're talking about objectively telling what the person did. So there is an agreement from them that they couldn't send mails by so and so, and then what is impact it cost you. So when I know, so when things don't go as wanted, and when I get to know that, how will I get to know that? Only when I know the impact of it. So when somebody is explaining that this is the impact that was caused because things got delayed from your end, I am going to respond in a different way. I'm going to think, well, or I'm going to open up and say that why I couldn't send a mail. And then we could get into what's the real problem and focus on the next step. So if you have to derive on an action together, both of you, then you should know why that happened. But if you start with a why question, right? Why didn't you send me an email by 11 a.m.? That's the why. Direct usage of why is accusing. Okay, we are not talking about English. We are just saying that avoid certain things. Avoid having a rough tone of voice. Avoid using why. Don't start with a why, because why is generally accusing. And then don't try to cut down on adjectives. Don't use the words of you put me off the mood. No, you were put off the mood. Say that you were put off the mood, but when you are saying what, only describe the what part of them that's it, right? So what of this, and then you can be subjective. For your expression, right, you can go any level of subject you want. It is natural behavior. Some people get too emotional and say how it disturbed them, but you can't put that emotion with while you are giving the points to the other person. Okay, and then once you say this is the impact that it caused, then you discuss the next step. This is very important to discuss what are you going to do next. Otherwise, the whole purpose of saying how it impacted or that this is what you observe. So here you can wear your coach hat depending on who is the receiver. What you could do is allow them to think and process. Ask them what they would do. You can say what you would do if you were in that situation. Use the micro S questions. Okay, you could say, what are your thoughts? How do you think you would handle it the next time? Such questions, such dialogue between both of you would really make the conversation useful for one another. Any thoughts, anybody on this? Anything that you can see as a takeaway, good or bad, in that slide? I'll put that back. Anything new at all?
So definitely for me, it is like, yeah, you rightly pointed out, the moment we ask why, it puts the other person in a defensive mode rather than, making it think about what the problem is all about, Yeah, I truly agree with the fact that avoiding why is definitely important in providing feedback or, seeking more information with the respondents.
Yeah, that's empathy, right? We need to know what's their story, because everyone has their story. Everyone thinks they're right. And objectively, we don't want to get into the discussion of right, wrong. We just want to get into this discussion of this is what it is expected, and this is what happened, and this is the gap. This is all we want to discuss, right? So if we can skillfully try to train, that's the preparation part. Try to think about what we are going to say, we are not going to say. It's going to make a huge difference in the feedback session. And the next time they're welcoming feedback rather than avoiding you. So I think that's a win for us if we have to give
Absolutely.
feedback. Yeah. So certain elements. This graph is, you see there is a radical Candor there. There are too many books. There's a book named Radical Candor itself, talking about feedback. Some people would have heard this. Feedback is breakfast of champions. All these books talk about these aspects of what we discussed on, objectivity and discussing impact and discussing the next action items with them, and not forgetting to start small, short questions to make the conversation, to make them feel that they are in authority, right? And if you see here, there's this apple with a bite. This is just saying that all our information should be bite-sized. I did tell you, we don't have to go with a long list of complaints. No one's going to listen to it. It's just going to get ended up in an argument, and then both will come out frustrated out of the meeting, which is another useless 30 minutes to 1 hour wasted. So keep your information short. Just, you don't have to, every time feedback has to be about a new information. There's no point pointing out a mistake that happened 3 months ago a couple of times, right? So that's the bite-sized information. Please interrupt me if you don't agree there, or if you have something to add. And then timer here that you see is trying to say when to give a feedback. First, I'll come to when not to give a feedback. When should you alter feedback? Let's go to the abbreviation of HALT, halt. Whenever the person is, or whenever you yourself are hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, that's not the time to give feedback, because as humans, we are getting into frustration in these 4 situations, right? And you also have to be considerate that the other person is not even in the halt state. He's not hungry, hangry, lonely or tired. That's not the time to give a feedback, because you're not the best self of self. And moreover, in that situation, you can't plan well, neither one can talk well. So avoid that situation. And then somebody rightly said in the beginning, when should we give? We should not wait for the whole year, and you should not pull out data points from past. So you should give the feedback as soon as possible, especially if you heard a comment about sexism, if it is a homophobic comment, or if it is about racism. You don't have to wait and watch for a pattern in the person. But other things, maybe they did it for first time. Like we took the example of David, who was raising his voice with his colleagues. You can check for the first time, see for the second time, and wonder what's happened. If you notice for the third time, you know that it's a pattern. And that's the time when you need to give feedback, right? So feedback timing is ASAP. Gone are the days when you wait for the whole year, because that's completely used. Nobody recollects what we did in the beginning. And especially if it is behavioral feedbacks, it is not going to help. Performance feedbacks, maybe we have our data points. They have their data points, but the reason behind them is going to seem like not genuine, because we can't recollect. And then you don't want to open up all the email conversation you have had over time. There is no time, because generally you might need to give 10 to 20 feedback as a manager. So the best thing to do is give it ASAP. Okay, even the positive ones. I said the SAG model doesn't work, right? So what you could replace with is a huge dynamic dramatic shift in giving positive feedbacks. So whenever you get a chance, keep giving positive feedback. It is like depositing in a relationship bank. Okay. So anything that builds trust, anything that's bonding two people, you think it as a deposit, and anything that's taking a trust part, think of it as withdrawal. So when you give a feedback that is, you consider it as a constructive feedback, say the receiver is not yet, in those cases, those are the situations they may not like you. But for the relationship to withstand, what you need to do is you should have put enough deposit in it. In that case, the relationship will tolerate the emotional blow that comes with a negative feedback, right? So that's the when part of a feedback. I think we don't have to discuss about being an active listener or keeping it a two-way conversation. If feedback is only you going and just saying out all the things you know, it's no point, because there is no buy-in from the other person. Or if the receiver, we have all seen this, some people, right? When they come, you make one statement and somebody might start crying. Somebody might get too emotional. Somebody might get too angry. And somebody might even get into complete silence, right? So that is where this two-way communication and active listening go side by side. What do I mean by active listening? Anybody on active listening? What do you think is active listening?
Speak less.
Listen more.
Yeah, listen more. Yeah.
Yeah, listen more. So listening is one thing, but the other person feeling that he is being heard, that is most important aspect. So the other person should feel that he is being heard. So there is this documentary called as what was it? White Report or something, where basically there's a lady, a Muslim lady who comes in the land of white, and then she has her struggles and things like that. But what happens there is that in that documentary, she's the one who is the victim, because she's getting a lot of things not in favor of her. But when the white men come and have a discussion with her, she remains silent for a while the white men put out all their frustrations in front of her. When you are in that state, and when you are like, that's fine, go on, okay, tell me more. This is how you make, this is your active listening part, right? When you are allowing them to empty their emotional bucket, that's active listening part, right? So once you allow all that to be emptied, you know what happens? The real problem comes to surface, where you can then start the actual conversation. It doesn't happen with everybody, but with some people, yes, you need to do this. You should allow space so that they can empty their bucket. Yes, Satish.
Thanks. Another point to just add about this active listening is not everything will be said. We need to read between the lines, or we need to understand from the body language, the perspective, the way the other person is responding or reacting. That also comes under this active listening. Right? So especially as a coach, it is really important for us to focus on how effective or how actively we are listening to the other person's context or the conversation. They might be saying yes, but there might be a lot of different thoughts behind that yes. So that's where the active listening is coming about.
Absolutely. I think you coming from the coaching space, you have really mentioned that quite well. It's about interpreting, trying to find out what the other person is trying to say. And it doesn't happen if you are the first day manager, go to the person and then you can have it. It's possible like that. You should have some trust built up with the person. It depends on what is the credibility you carry with that person while you're giving that feedback on that particular element. Say you yourself are late to meetings every single time, and then you want to give a feedback on that person saying that you're not punctual. Again, that's not the way to give it, because you're not punctual, you're trying to use adjective. So cut it out. Instead, say you did not come to the meeting 2 times out of 3 in this week. This is how you converted it to data point. But by doing this, by listening to them as to why they didn't come to the meeting, that is where you are trying to find out and be empathetic. Okay, you're trying to find out why, rather than questioning directly, why didn't you come for the meeting, right? trigger a two-way conversation. If the person is getting too silent, try to find out what's happening, and they would only become silent when they are not agreeing, or they are in total denial because they are not facts. So you need to be an active listener. With the doctor thing I was telling, right? She allows the white men to, completely empty their buckets, and eventually what happens is that they open up, and then they come to the real conversation of why was that their behavior like this, and what irritated them, what activities of this irritated them. That was need to be discussed in the beginning, right? But it took some time. So being active listening also means that if you're actively listening, you're also allowing space for them to empty, and then not all their answers, like how Satish mentioned, is what they're trying to say. So the body language is something that plays a huge role as well. Even when you're delivering feedback, you can't be saying you did a good job, and you can't have that face of not showing happiness for them, so I think it's somewhere about being honest with ourselves, and why are we giving the feedback. Check at the door before you enter that door, or before you start that video call. Check with yourself, what's your intention of giving feedback. I think once that is clear, because feedback generally we think is about the other person, but to be frank, it's also about ourselves. Once the intention is quite clear, and then you pass this on to them, I want you to improve. I noticed that you are not doing things in XYZ well, and I want you to do these things well, so that there is career development for you. When you say it like this, anybody is going to buy that. And if that's your true intention, it's not quite hard to put it like that, right? So, and then we were saying, just talk about the data points. Don't exaggerate them. Don't say, unless it has really happened, you don't have to say that you are not sending me an email could have cost millions and billions of dollars lost to company. Maybe it's true if they didn't send it and things like that. But you don't have to scare off people, because then you are pushing them to corner, right? And then you don't have to underplay it because the person is emotional, or you don't have to downplay it and say that. There are certain times, right, when we give feedback like this, when we say that you want to say to somebody that they're not good at XYZ. How would you start? You say, hey, you're not, I noticed that you didn't do XYZ part well, but I think you did some part. Well, you can improve. Well, everything overall is good. So if you give feedback like this, it's going to, confuse the other person. They don't know if it went well or if it didn't go well. So you don't have to underplay it. You carry the professional credibility. You are authorized to give the feedback. As a peer also, you are authorized to give a feedback. So just check with them. Hey, micro S question. Hey, I noticed something. Can I share with you? Right? It could be as awkward situation as somebody's dress. It could be such an awkward topic, but still you could have a feedback by making it short and crisp. Especially awkward situations should be kept short and sweet. Okay. So you need to basically tailor it to each person. It can't be that every way of feedback suits all the personalities there. So you may need to really tailor them. There are defensive ones, the emotional ones, like I quoted before. So irrespective of that, what you need to see is your communication has to be thoughtful, respectful. It has to be clear. It has to be concise, right? When you have prepared for the feedback, just cross-check if your data points are in line with they being clear, they being thoughtful. And of course, the language has to be respectful. I think that is not a point. Even if the other person is tipping you off, I think that's the skill we are talking about, right? And somebody might have this question. I get this question sometimes when I do the sessions. How do you handle a person who comes to feedback session and they just go boom, quite emotional and low? How do you deal such people? Or how do you deal with people who get quite defensive about it? So there's this part. How do you deal them is that make that element which has been something that is becoming a hurdle for your conversation, bring it to surface. How do you say? Hey, hi. Thanks for accepting this feedback session. We noticed that in the last feedback session, when we started off, you were not comfortable with it. So today, how do you want to handle if the same thing happens again? When you ask that person with a micro S question, how do you want to handle if it becomes emotional today? How do you want to handle if it becomes uncomfortable today? Then there are less chances that it's going to repeat. Or you could also empathize, saying that if you're not prepared today to handle this discussion, let's have it another day. If you still feel emotional about it, or if you're still feeling uncomfortable about it, let's reschedule it. That way, even if you reschedule 2-3 times, the fourth time they can't come and do all the crying in front of you. You know, it works. Just give it a try. I've tried it, so happy about that. And humor, yeah. We all think if we laugh on something, you know, things will get light. Even if you have done a mistake, it can get light. It's not so true in case of feedback, because you're just two people in a room. I'm talking about a constructive feedback one, where it has to be done in private and not in public. You're not going to say in front of 100 people that you didn't send me a mail by 11 a.m. this morning. That's not going to help. You'll only be short of one employee the next day, right? So humor, for example, I'll tell this joke. If you used, say somebody said that they couldn't come to office on an important day because they had a situation, personal emergency where somebody passed away, okay? And you want to ask, was it smoking or non-smoking? What do you think that is? I mean, you're trying to be humorous, okay? You're trying to ask, was it burial or it was what's the other one that they do? Do they bury or do they, put you on fire? That's what you need to ask. But say you have that sense of humor, and then you are like, was it smoking or non-smoking? That's not going to do any good for that person, right? So we need to think about cutting down on a bit of humor if it is a grim situation in that space. So the stage of laughter, which is set to kind of hide the negative feedback, is not true. It's going to only make it worse. And some do's and don'ts quite clear. I said, let's be honest, be specific. Data points, not to confront them, but to see, okay, if I give this point to him, then this action from them might them to improve this, or this might not repeat. So data points from that thinking, like if I have to say, if you were in that position, what would you expect? So that level of honesty at times is needed while if you want to really get better at giving feedback. That's kind of leadership aspect that goes without saying. And you're not criticizing, you're not prejudiced, you're not biased, not by the language, not by the community. Generally there are various kinds of biases, okay? It's quite natural for human, but I would say when you're going to give a feedback, just be sure that we are talking about the person's work and we are talking about the person's behavior that is affecting the work. Just these two things. So that could be helpful. Any questions till now before we jump to receiving feedback? Any thoughts? Or was it too much? At least relatable or not relatable?
Yeah, it's
Definitely
relatable.
relatable. Definitely relatable.
Yeah. Thanks. I think, yes, we are going off track. So I just want to ensure that it's relatable and then we come back. Okay. On receiving feedback, I said in the beginning, somebody did say that it's all on the giver. Some no. It's also on the receiver. Okay. So generally, it's thought that feedback giver should learn all these aspects of how to give an effective feedback. Undoubtedly, yes, we need to learn as managers, as leaders, as peers, we need to learn this. But at the same time, we are also at receiving end, right? So we also need to become wise and learn how to receive them. Okay. I wouldn't say that if somebody is triggering your emotion by, say, for example, for example, say I think communication is quite important for me and I love communicating. And if somebody says it in a negative way, saying that, oh, you're such a chatterbox, okay? Since that is dear to me, I'm going to get hurt. And naturally, it's going to come out as an emotion. I'm going to either get defensive, or based on who is telling me, I'm going to get silent, right? But if somebody to tell me that I kind of overwork at times, I know it's not good, and then I would say that, oh well, yes, I know I'm trying to improve on that, but I am not able to manage my time well. I'm going to come with it, because I know for a fact that it's reality, right? But when it comes to the other aspect, I'm not ready to accept it as a fact, because it's something that I hold close to my heart. I feel I am good at it, and if somebody says you're not good at it, it's going to hurt my feelings. But well, even in that situation, if I mention to you all that smile and say thank you, that's not going to work, right? That is not a useful tip that is given in some of books also, unfortunately, that you need to smile and accept it as a thank you. No, it's not going to work. But what can you do so that you are not getting a victim of somebody's way of putting a statement, is that you're going to paraphrase the whole thing, okay? So if somebody called me a chatterbox, okay, while I see it as a communication skill that I am good at, but somebody else put it in a negative way for me, I'm going to paraphrase it for myself. I'm going to ask them questions. That is, do ask questions that you see on the slide. I'm going to ask for more insights. I'm going to ask, I understand that your comment means that I have spoken more than needed in certain occasions. So if you can help me with the data points, if it was in the meeting or the conference that you are referring to, maybe it will help me to understand what we can do about it. Entire thing that they said anybody making a comment would also made a comment based on certain observations, their perception of it, right? And if the feedback giver is not has not honed this skill, has not learned the skill of giving feedback, and just throws it at you, you as a receiver could have the skill of paraphrasing what you have learned. You don't have to smile, be nice. You don't have to hide that emotion, but you can use that emotion and then paraphrase the entire thing that you listened to just now. It takes practice again. It's like giving objective feedback. The receiving feedback part here, paraphrasing, rephrasing the entire stuff that they said into a language that makes you feel better. If you can even say that I generally think I'm good at communication. If my communication skills have troubled you at some instances, then can you please tell me which are those occasions? You ask for the data points, you ask for the insights. And if those are facts, the other person should know it and they should give it. If they are not, they are going to blabber, and you don't have to consider those feedback. This is the whole beauty of it. The beauty of receiving feedback is you don't have to just listen to everything what everybody says. You need to process the information. If you see there's a decision tree there, this is very useful when you receive the feedback. You can see who is giving you feedback, and based on their professional credibility, based on the trust you carry with that person, if they are doing it for your well-being or not for your well-being, you can also take an alternate opinion, and then you can cross-check with somebody with whom you believe. And then if it is the same reflection, you will need to take it and then try to see what you could do to implement. If not, you can clearly ignore or put that feedback in, aside. You don't have to. So basically, if there are two people, me as a receiver and somebody else as a feedback giver, if we both are looking through a window and looking at a scenery, I might be experiencing it in a slightly different way than the next person to me, right? So we don't want window gazing to happen between the giver and receiver. We want somebody who can hold mirror to us. As a receiver, I want somebody who can hold a mirror to show me what's going wrong, and that would be data points. And that is where I can use the feedback that is given in any way, a good way, bad way, whatever way they give. I can paraphrase and I can see it as an opportunity, as a potential for positive growth in me, right? So receiving feedback, if you read that quote by this American author, is the person who has written this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm sure most of the managers and leaders are quite familiar with that book. So he does says, you wise enough to receive the feedback, right, in the way it needs to be. So paraphrase the same thing, and that's why it's called a gift, because it's basically letting us to improve. And what causes the problem is that if we also try to focus on the past, right? Okay, I spoke 3 or 4 times in a place that was inappropriate for me to speak, right? So if I am trying to focus on the past, it's not beneficial. But if I try to see it as a space where I know that by thinking about the past, it's bringing out the fear. I am feeling like I'm exposed in front of, the reality. But if I kind of digest that, and then I say that, okay, things can't be changed in the past. Let me look forward. Let me see what can be done so that it doesn't repeat. This attitude is what we need to develop. That's the skill we need to develop. Otherwise, feedback would not be a gift. So to call feedback as a gift, in some way, it should help us to improve or become a better version of ourselves. And I would say it's all about processing the information. So I think receiving feedback is as important as giving feedback. We need to build our emotional intelligence to paraphrase something and get to the point, have the trust that it's trying to reduce our blind spot, and that's where the personal development comes from. Any questions there on receiving feedback? It's not easy. It's easy said than done, but it comes with practice. That I'm trying to say, it comes with practice. If we consciously, think this is a skill and try to learn it, it's going to help in our everyday communication with a lot of our stakeholders, especially the data points and the objectivity part and paraphrasing part. And yes, Subramanian.
Yeah, hi. The session was in very full flow. I don't want to disturb actually, but still, I'm just giving the real-time scenario. There is a situation where, being as a project manager or a scrum master, whatever it is, sometimes it happens like you have to ramp down the, number of people in the project. So that is a very tough situation for a project manager to tell, because those people are already working with us from many months, right, on a single project. At that time, your emotion plays more than anything else. So if you don't mind, like, can we have some role play? I don't know whether this session is prepared for that or not, but so that we, those things will embed in our mind very fastly than a subjective approach.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Please don't mind.
There.
I just want. Yeah.
No, that's where in the starting I wanted to ask, if somebody would have shared this story, we could have played a whole session around how that could have been different. So okay. That's where we were talking about the objectivity part. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so Subramanian, you have found it as a difficult situation. Anybody who wants to try giving a feedback there, how would you give a feedback to somebody who needs to go out of your team? Just give it a try. We are anyway, trying to see where we could improve. There is no right answer, right? We don't know whom Subramanian is talking about. We don't know the person. We don't know his dynamics. So if you were to imagine somebody, and then how would you give a feedback? Any volunteers? Let's do a role play ourselves, Subramanian. If you have to tell me, how would you use it? How would you say me that I need to be ramped down from this team?
Fine. You consider me as a developer from for a particular project, right? And I'll give you a context. Like this project has already been running. Ramped up from around 10 to 60 because the project scope, there is a huge scope creep. So project has been ramped up like anything. So this is something like a fixed bid project, which is to be completed in 8 months of time. And initially your marketing team has gone there and brought the project saying that we'll complete this project in this time, because they have quoted almost double the price and they brought the project. So they thought it would be a win-win situation with around 10 to 15 people, which is very unrealistic. So in this condition, we being a Scrum Master or a project manager, what happens is we saw that, you know, this is not possible with this many number of people, right? So we ramped up the project. Now you consider me as a developer, and of course, I practically have gone with some statistics saying that this is what we have done and this is how the costing of the project is been standing. That was my approach, but it was still hard to, you know, go with those things and tell. Yeah, you can consider me on the other side now. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I had to give feedback there, first of all, I would have definitely made sure that I have time to time put in. I talked about this relationship bank between me and you, right? Now, I would have made sure that I have ensured I have given you the deserved appreciations time to time with you. So that would have built a strong trust. And then when I have to give this news, which is coming from top to me and which I am supposed to communicate in my role, I would mention the facts that I would say, hi Subramanian, do you have a few minutes to this conversation?
Yep. Yes, please.
Thanks. This is going to be a very uncomfortable one. Uncomfortable for you as well as me. And I don't want to do it. If given a chance, I would just run away and don't want to do it. But I need to do it at any cost because you have every authority to know this information right now. By knowing a bit ahead of time, it will help you plan your next steps. It's not a wonderful news I'm bringing in like every time. Hope you take this in the right spirit, and you have to be trusting me that this is not directly relevant. I mean, I'm just creating a scenario because I don't know if it's relevant to the performance or not, right? So I'm mixing I don't context of it. So if it is not performance based, if it is performance based, I need to say where it was lacking and with the observations that I have made, and I would say in his next career role, this is going to help him. But if it is not performance, it's just a ramp down, then I do have to say that the way the organization ramps up and ramps down is quite dynamic. So it is not only with respect to software developers, it also happens with managerial layers. Okay, sometimes when we are in the system, we need to understand the pros and cons of it. And so something on these lines is what you will have to, because here you are purely communicating what has happened in the system to the person. So it's not about making him,
Yes,
it's not about their performance. It's not about saying like the speed limit, 25 is expected, but you're driving at 35. This is not the conversation about the person, right? It is just passing on a very hard decision that is made by somebody in power to this person. So these would need a coffee time discussion in private, and then as an action item, there is no impact cost. You would say the impact cost, it's that it can be, the team aspect of it. You were a wonderful team player, so the impact that it causes is that it would leave the team feel left out for a while unless we have somebody coming up to your speed and your behavior to fill up that gap for us. Okay, you need to let the person know that he will be missed as well, right? That, and you need to thank him for all the contributions that he has done at this till this point of time, and of course you can't assure him that you could get the person back or something, but you could say that you could clearly point out where are his strengths, where are his scope for improvement, so that it will help him in his next career move that he needs to make. So you could do the best by holding a mirror. That's what I would say. Tell him where he's good at, tell him what he needs to improve on, and you need to pass on this. So the one aspect of feedback is, when is it that you need to give a feedback? We did discuss some stuff, not halt on this, but when you have it in your gut, right? It's going to get quite uncomfortable, that's the time when you need to do it because you have delayed it. And especially such information of hard ones, you should not hold it for long. As soon as you have the information in official, you need to pass it on to the other person. Does that add a bit of comfort to you, Subramaniam?
Yes, definitely. Because few points are to be taken, because few helps us in in regular course of action. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Subramaniam. Yes, Vimal.
I felt this feedback was very structured. I mean, you banged on the appreciated that particular person and gave him the best things he did in the project, and then later you mentioned he shown the empathy there, because you are in a situation where you have to deliver, you can't escape it, but something like that, and that's the empathy you are showing. But one question I have here is, anyway, this team member is going away from the team for any reason,
Yeah.
so is it the right time? I mean, that is a particular right time to give him the opportunities, him or he. I mean, because in that situation, how the emotionally they will take the feedback, the positives and the negative. I mean, positives anyway they are happy, but opportunities whenever delivered during that time, will they take it?
Yeah, so there are certain elements that you can control and certain you can't, right? So let's all face it. There's also certain things which, no matter how well you deliver, some things could not be taken up by the opposite person. So some things are not, impossible. Otherwise, it would have been an ideal world to live in, right? But what I said is, if you look at this slide, the entire intent, if it is about the person's wellness for you, okay, if you're true and honest that you are invested in the wellness of that person, you do your job by telling the person that you are here to communicate this message, but at the same time, though it is not important at this point of time to mention any feedback for him, you want to do your bit of exposing the strengths and scope of improvement for him for his next career move, right? That is helpful in his future. That means you're really invested in that person's wellness. So I think by that way, it's really up to the person if he wants to take it or receive it. It all depends on how the relationship has been between the two of you till now. If it was not a good one, where he doesn't where say you don't get the credibility from that person, or he doesn't think you are his well-wisher, maybe he will just reject your feedback. That's fine. But if there was trust that was built up, then yeah, you know that it's going to benefit him by exposing what is not going well with him as well, and you can make it clear whatsoever was the reason for his movement out of the team. This is quite a scenario now, and this is where I'm troubled when people are called bosses, because sometimes we get treated like that, right? This is a tough situation that you put, Subramaniam, but a common one. So we need to face it. All I do is I try to help them by holding the mirror, of course, in the most empathetic way that is possible. Empathy doesn't mean that you should not tell them what's not going right. You just have to tell it in the right tone, and you have to open up your intention that you have in your mind to them. You have to say that I am telling for the benefit of you. Though it's uncomfortable, it might not be the inappropriate time. If you want to hold this discussion another point of time, I am happy to share, happy to reschedule. But I want to tell you certain things that will help you grow. And when somebody is so invested in our growth, I don't think it's natural for anybody to deny it. So I don't know. What do you think, Vimal? Should that way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
I-
sense. Yeah, it's the relation that you have. I mean, as I said, just few points. The relationship that you have with that particular person, and the emotional at that particular point of time. We have to make a decision whether we need to give the improvement feedback or not. If they are capable of taking that, if they are emotionally strong, then we can give for the whole sake. Even if by chance, even being a human being, if you deliver, if it gets rejected, it's okay. We have so at least it will leave us in a feeling that we have invested in that person's improvement. That's
Yes.
what I.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is all about their improvement that we are trying. Feedback is closing that gap. So I think we need to do there. Some quotes. Now we are 1 minute overrunning. I hand over back to Satish.
Hi, Nethravathi. Can I ask one question here?
Yes, please. I can't see the name somehow, so you could just please go
That's
ahead.
okay. Yeah, my name is Srinath. Yeah, see,
Oh,
I mean, what
Srinath.
is the time? Yeah, what is the time or what is the day it is good to give the feedback? Because there was a, I mean, I'll give the incident and later I'll wait for your comments. So one of the guy was given a feedback at the Friday evening, and he went to home. I mean, obviously, as Subramaniam said, he was asked to leave the account or project. So he was so much passionate about the account, and he was unfortunately asked to go. So he has made a suicide attempt because he has given I mean, feedback on Friday evening, and he went to home, and on Saturday morning or afternoon he made a suicide attempt. And from then, HR team in our company started saying that feedback should not be given on Friday or on Friday evening. No, highly not commendable giving the feedback on Fridays or one day before the holiday.
Yeah. So you have the event happened. So I think that's a good one there. Again, it really boils down to what kind of a person they are. So for some people, they are very self-correcting and they are quite, they're self-organized. They're focused on their improvement. They want direct answers and direct feedback. For such people, give it at any point of time doesn't matter because they self-correct. You don't even have to say what's the action item. You just have to say that I noticed this. Think about having a correction, and then they do it. But there are also these set of people which is more common, where we are more emotionally not emotionally more prone to taking things quite personal, even in the professional space. With them, if you know the person, avoid it by all means, so that we know that the next working day they get busy. That's an important tip there, Srinath. I think you called out a good one. If somebody is in that emotional space, yeah, just don't do it when you're allowing them lonely. So that's the alt aspect, right? Don't give when they're lonely and they're getting into that lonely times. So we should kind of know what um, environment is going to be for them post this feedback. So yeah, right. So
I
halt
think
is something. Yeah, not lonely, not when they look tired. No, it's not a good
right.
time.
I mean, moreover, he is so much passionate, or I don't know why he is having so much passionate with the project or with the deliverables he is providing. I mean, I don't know whether it becomes. I mean, whatever the point I'm asking, is it part of our discussion or not? I mean, how do we make people saying that so much emotional, or how do we identify the emotional quotient of each individual, and how do we align our discussions or feedback to such kind of people? I mean, as you
Yeah,
said,
it's the emotional
yeah,
intelligence topic. I think organizations have to invest money not just in communication and soft skills there, but they should invest something emotional intelligence trainings, especially with generation nowadays, where most of the lives are quite lonely, right? And we don't know what they're going through in their background. So that's where empathy comes into picture. Why all of a sudden empathy has picked up so much is because of the generation problems, where loneliness is a big factor, right? So unless we know their side of story, we don't want to be our typical managers like how we used to be. So that's very important. And I would just say that organizations, as part of any feedback surveys that comes up, what I do is in organization surveys, I say that can we have sessions on emotional intelligence? And nowadays I know that companies are investing hugely into mental well-being. There are quite a number of apps, right? Thrive and things like that. So as a manager in my space, I will look out for any such thing in the organization. I will say, whenever you're feeling lonely, there is this place where you can talk to psychologists for free, and it's highly confidential. So try and expose all those information that you know about well-being to your squads. That's the best we could do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add on, Srinath, like for your previous question, I recommend to share the feedback or any bad news or any information at the earliest possible. Right. So in your example which you refer, like the Friday evening is not the time when such decisions will be taken. Right. It might be already by Friday morning itself, or maybe Thursday itself, or whenever the information is aware by the manager or whoever is that messenger, it is recommended or suggested to communicate that at the earliest possible. At the same time, the emotional quotient, we are discussing the second point, right? So we need to keep a close watch on that emotional quotient as well. How that other person might respond or react, or is there anything we as a individual, even the manager is also an individual, right? We as an individual can provide some emotional support or anything as such, right? So most of the cases, what happens is it's not the decision taken by the manager. It might be something coming from the leadership or the higher management team. We are a communicator or we are a messenger in the middle. So we are not the decision taker for sure. Right? The way how we communicate,
No, but
the way how we set the context matters a lot.
no, the point here is, Satish, I mean, the company, what it does is it, I mean, even the manager was got counseled by the HR team or from outsider consultant, saying that he should not do such kind of things. And later there was a new rule or a new norm created in the company saying that no bad news is given on Friday evening or Friday. So,
that's very valid as such, Srinath. The example you mentioned, right? The reason, like as Nethravathi mentioned just now, the emotional quotient or emotional context setting is being taken as importance or relevance by each and every organization, and they are trying to make sure the leaders are going through such what do you say, the workshops or the trainings, making sure like the good news can be shared in any way. The bad news is what
yeah,
we
you're
should.
right. You're right, Satish. The problem is, I don't know how somehow our Indian education system doesn't gear up the people or gear up the students with this kind of knowledge. I see when I talk to my friends' kids, no? I mean, they talk so high level thinking. I mean, they have so high level thinking. And our guys, I mean, my son doesn't talk.
Right. It's a deep-rooted problem. Let's be frank. It's a deep-rooted problem. It's our education system. It's how kids speak nowadays. It's the emotional level. Sometimes entirely lack of emotion. Sometimes it's very emotional. Sometimes you see those stands they show at this age, which we never date to do. Right.
Correct.
So it's a deeper topic, I would say.
Yeah, I think a new education system. I mean, I don't want to take politics into your discussion, but just one liner. I think whatever Modi has put up the new education system, I think he's covering these points.
Let's hope for the best.
Every leader has to do it. So as per the need, as per the society that we live in, things change. Like how our religions have changed, like how our festivals have changed.
Got modified.
So,
I would say modified. I mean,
we need
I
to
don't
modify
know.
as per the time. Yeah, that's right. You're right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Srinath.
Satish, one request here. I mean, somebody has put a very wonderful comments. I'm seeing that, but because I am not on the system, I'm attending using a mobile. How to save these comments?
I will share that comments as well along with the what is the recording. I will have that option. I will save the. I will share that because even I could see a lot of valid points and the feedback given, right? By Ram and many other folks. I will share that chart history as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you, Nethravathi. It was wonderful session. I don't know. I mean, this is my this one. my expectation more and more sessions of this kind of non-technical related topics. It is very good. I mean, I felt very happy.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
are
so
planning
much.
for
I think
Sicilian.
Satish was very welcoming when, as soon as I put the topic, and thanks to him for facilitating the entire thing for me. I think we are somewhere forgetting the people aspects. Let's. I think it connects just because everybody is invested in people topics, as it's a frequency, I would say. That's why the conversation becomes easier. If not, somebody vested only in tools and things, it will be very difficult. Tools are as important, we can't ignore them, but I think these soft aspects are quite important, and it's been helpful for me. That's why I just wanted to share it with the community. Thanks to one and all. Thank you so much.
No, if you are part of the
just
group,
before
if you are part of the group, yeah, I'm sorry, I'll take only 1 minute, Satish. I
Sure.
understand.
Sure.
So, Nethravathi, if you are part of the group, and please suggest some of the books or some of the blogs where we can read and get some kind of
Sure.
insights in our thinking. Yeah.
Right.
Thank
I'm
you.
in the group. I will share this today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Srinath. Arun,
Thank you, Satish.
over to you.
Hi guys, as due to my health issues, I was not able to attend the meeting, but I thought of attend the meeting at least for a minute, and that is the reason I joined the meeting lastly. And I thank Satish for giving this opportunity. Even though I was not a part of the meeting, I joined just 5 minutes ago. I feel that I very well know that this is not a paid session, first of all. So for that, I congratulate Netra for giving her valuable time and sharing her knowledge with us. And of course, the facilitator Satish and even the participants. And the other part I would like to bring to your notice is, yes, even though I was not able to attend this, go through all the sessions, I have been a part of the most valuable question and answer, which is asked by Mr. The Satish Srishant, right? Srinath, yeah, sorry, Srinath. Srinath has a valuable question, which is very interesting, and it has been a practical scenario. And for that, in the initial answer, I was not happy with the answer given by Netra and other person. But at last, at last point of time, I feel that Netra has got that catchy point, which at last she said that it depends. Every time giving feedback will not happen with tools. It depends upon personal approach. That is the right answer, Netra. And we should not even blame, I think, not only Indian education, it might be any country education system. Because if the more you build up in connections with people, the less you go through the depressions. That is what I feel. The more you get connected with valuable materialistics, that might be money or any other habits, the less you go to depressions, when that will not be successful. So that is what I feel in my personal opinion. And because even though we think that the foreign system is much high standards, but when you want to have when you go in the life scenario, it is not, because we have teachers where we have an opportunity even for the parents to go and question the teachers. But in foreign countries, the parents are not allowed to meet the teachers, and even we don't have the other facilities where we have in India's study system. But overall, the thing is, it even depends upon the person and the society and personal connections. So I'm coming to the point of a corporate culture. See, the thing is, to be frank, I have worked with many of the companies, and I have worked under most of the managers who have been managers of other countries and Indian managers. But the difference is when you work under the management ship of a foreigner, you will feel the approach of he's giving I think that we can recognize that he will give value for dignity of labor. So you see, even if you do a small thing, the foreign manager will not feel shy to congratulate you. But when you work under the management system of an Indian guy, he wants much more, because his anticipation is more. He doesn't want his targets to be completed. He wants something more than the targets. That is the only reason where might be for a number of reasons, might be a suicide attempt, might be a job change, might be and the other part is the society. See, if you are in a circle where everyone gives value only with your valuable things of money or status or any other things, you will feel the same. When you at every point of time, there comes a situation where one has to lose everything. It might be in the middle age, younger age, or olden age. So at that point of time, you will definitely go for a depression. But when you start cultivating your habits, giving values to people and living in your own peace, if you gain job or not, I can really say that you will not feel any discomfortness, That is what we need to practice, and we need to inculcate these habits in the future generations. Then hopefully we can reduce this sort of acts, I think so. That is what from my end. And if something goes wrong which opposes your thoughts, please forgive me. That is what I can say.
No problem. I think it's everybody's inner voice. You just sometimes put it out, and we all concur there, Arun. We know. I mean, we all feel the same. I'm sure everybody feels the same. But some things just by discussion is not going to change. So we could see where a little bit we could contribute, and you can make some changes within your family, within your circles, within your office space. I think that's the little bit we could do. That's it.
So that's what.
Yeah, as Arun said, Satish, I'll take only 1 minute. I will not being
Sure.
in a lengthy comments. As Arun said, yes, the white manager gives importance to the people, not to the person.
Not
Sorry.
everybody sees, please forgive me.
Yes, Arun, I understand. I mean, India managers are bound or have been made or are being manufactured or fabricated to give importance only to the work, not to the individual or into the people. I don't know for what reason. As you said again, our India education system is far better than the Western education system. But at the same time, now it has been, I mean, our Indian education system has been so much disturbed. They started giving the importance to the work, but not to the individual. So we need to keep that into our consideration in the office or corporate world, which is not done all these days. As Nethravathi said, we are trying to bring up all those people related activities like empathy or taking the person into emotions into considerations and giving the news, bad news or good news. But definitely now we are changing, but that is too late, to be frank. But that's okay. What to do? I mean, sometime is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. So we have a starting point now. So for the rest of the generation or next generation, they will be happy in the corporate world. Yeah, I'll close my comments here, Satish. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. And once again, thanks Nethravathi for your wonderful topic and the session. That definitely triggered a lot of thought process
Yes.
Among the participants, and as you can
Yeah.
see, we get extended the discussion. And once again,
Yeah.
thanks from all the participants' perspective. And we will share the recording mostly by tomorrow. And yes, thanks once again. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you all.
Have a nice dinner and nice weekend. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Satish.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Once again. Thank you.